Hello and welcome to L&D Done Right. I'm your host, Gil Williams. On this podcast, we talk with some of the world's leaders in learning. Today, we are taking a little bit of pivot. It's going to be a little bit different today. As usual, I'm not the star of the show. Those are my guests. And so in this pivot, we're going to talk to a gentleman that is focused on learning. He's been in higher education. He's been in a whole bunch of different things, but he's specifically got a passion in carbon neutrality. And so he's taken the education and the background and really started to reinforce that passion. And I'm super excited to hear how he's taking online learning strategies from that perspective and helping people learn more about carbon neutrality, net zero as a whole. So I will pivot it over to my friend, Mr. Single T, Scot Bearss himself. Scott, say hello to the listeners.
Thanks, Gil, for having me. I'm excited to be here. Vibing off your energy right now. Let's carry that through.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So for those who are wondering why I call him Single T, I've never met another individual with the name Scott that spells it with one T. So Mr. Unique himself over here. But Scott and I have had the pleasure of working together for a little bit now. Obviously very lucky to be able to say that CD2 and your organization partner together and delivering this online education for carbon neutrality. I think it's fantastic work that we're doing. It's very mission driven, and that's what we do here at CD2. But we're not here to talk about that, about us. We're here to talk about you. I'd love if you can start us off. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, right? I mean, where are you from? What do you like to do? And how did you get here?
Yeah. Thanks, Gil. And I think we should plug CD2. Excellent organization. Couldn't be happier to work with them on Net Zero Academy, and I'm really excited to talk about it. So a little bit about myself. Me and my wife and our golden doodle Griffey live in Seattle, Washington. If you're watching this on video, you could probably see the gray coming through the window, which is not uncommon out here in Seattle. So currently, I work for Nelnet Renewable Energy. I lead the team that is deploying Net Zero Academy, which we'll be talking about a little bit more. Been with Nelnet for a couple years. Before that, I worked at Yale University for 4 years. And the majority of that time I was in the sustainability office. So helping to implement best practices around sustainability, carbon neutrality, kind of taking Yale, this prestigious school that is known worldwide, and trying to kind of have them walk the talk, if you will, right? Take those beliefs about sustainability and wanting to serve it as an example and putting it into practice throughout campus.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, there's definitely a fourth member of the family that we need to call out. I mean, you definitely have the best mustache this side of the Mississippi. So that is always tagging along.
Thanks, Gil.
I'm gonna make fun of myself here. If you know me personally, you know that I'm never shy to give myself trouble. I did shave. I grew out and I shaved to try and match you at the mustache game this morning. My wife, Brittany, I walked downstairs and she goes, no, sent me right back
upstairs.
And made me shave. But
you look great.
Yeah.
You look great. I had the opposite issue, right? So I've had my mustache since college. It's been a long time. And when I met my now wife, Marcel, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to shave it. I think I'm going to see what I look like without a mustache. It's been years. So I shaved it. I come out of the bathroom and we're both like, yeah, you're going to need to grow that back. My face, for some reason, requires a mustache. So I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Yeah.
Been rocking it for a while.
It plays
now.
well in higher education. I'm sure you walk into those rooms and those professors, those institutes, they just know you mean business the moment you walk in.
It can be commanding. It can. I can't deny that.
I love it. So walk me through it. You're coming out of college. You decide, hey, I'm going to go work for Yale. You get in there. What kind of drove you to take a different leap, right? So you're looking at the different experiences. What's shortcomings in that seat? Where are what am I trying to do? Walk us through what you were trying to accomplish there and why, some of the gaps you started to find that drove you to what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So my career has taken a lot of twists and turns. So I'll try to keep it as tight as possible.
Sure.
So I actually went to Yale for graduate school, and I was there doing religious studies for all intents and purposes. great program, super excited to be there. I had a full ride, like was just stoked to become a professor someday and talk about religious studies for the rest of my life. Decided to take a little detour off that path. Again, I'm happy to go into more detail if anyone's interested, but basically I started working at Yale University really because my only skills were religious studies. I could read Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic, and I knew all the text around that area, but I didn't have any real business skills that I could implement in a job beyond the positions that I had before grad school. So when I joined Yale, I was at HR, Human Resources, and I was an administrative assistant. So very, very important work, but, pretty basic. And as I worked throughout my time at Yale, I kind of slowly gained some skills, worked my way up, gained some skills, worked my way up. And I was actually on a trajectory before I worked at the sustainability office. I was working at Yale Medicine, and I was a technology trainer. So if anyone knows the technology Epic, which is a patient management system for medical institutions, I developed a whole training program and trained people how to use Epic. Took a pretty big left turn from that position to work at the sustainability office. Really, what it was is I've always had a personal passion for sustainability, and tried to go carbon neutral myself a couple times, tried to go vegan a couple times, and have just kind of been on my own journey in terms of how I want to live my life more sustainably. And I decided, I think that was around 2018, that I think it's time for me to align my career with my passion. Take this passion for sustainability and put more effort and more direction behind it, which is how I ended up taking the job at Yale Sustainability. I was the outreach manager there. So while I was at Yale, and I think most relevant to the conversation around Net Zero Academy, we looked at developing a sustainability literacy program for staff members at Yale. We had this sustainability leaders program by which staff members in each of the departments within Yale would try to implement best practices around sustainability. Maybe it's as simple as installing occupancy sensors so the lights turn off when someone leaves a room, or replacing the non-reusable coffee cups with coffee mugs, little things to kind of make a difference. Well, what we were trying to accomplish at the Office of Sustainability was, can we develop a program that educates staff members about kind of the holistic world of sustainability, right? Because it's huge. It touches every aspect of our lives. And the hope was that we could have some staff members run through the program, take that learning, and then implement it even further in their departments or schools or wherever they sit within the university. And in that sense, every staff member could feel like they were a part of helping Yale reach its sustainability goals, reach its carbon neutrality goals. And it's not just this thing that sits with the Office of Sustainability. Everybody has a part to play to pull, that project together. In the end, go ahead, Gil.
Well, the buy-in's so important, right? I mean, whether you're delivering training about Epic, whether you're delivering training about job skills in a manufacturing organization, just getting the buy-in and people, just influencers across the organization saying, hey, this is super important, is so that is key to any initiative in learning. And not to mention with what you're trying to do to get that buy-in, what a lift launching a program like this has to be, and that getting that buy-in across the organization at different levels. I mean, that had to have been just forefront of your mind. How do we get these students and teachers to say, yep, we all need to participate?
Absolutely. Yeah. So buy-in was one of the big hurdles. It's not to say that faculty members, staff members, leadership don't care about sustainability, because they really do. It was, how much of the time in your day can I take to develop a program like this, right? We had the Poravu, Teaching and Learning Center. We had Human Resources, which has a learning and development division. We have faculty members who regularly participated in sustainability events and talks and interviews and all that fun stuff. And it was pulling it all together in the form of a program that we just couldn't get the commitments from a time perspective from all the different individuals we needed to get it off the ground. So in the end, it kind of got sent to the back burner. The COVID pandemic did hit when I was there. And I think once COVID hit, I knew that idea was long gone, at least for the time being, at Yale University. Who knows, maybe they'll pick it up again in the future. But, we just couldn't find the resources to get it done. And that is a similar story for, I think, a lot of universities and schools throughout the US is they want to implement something like this. They just don't have the time, money, or resources to pull it together themselves.
So, being the entrepreneur that you are, you saw this opportunity to be and to go after and support them in these gaps. Why don't you walk us through how you came to be with Nelnet, what Nelnet Renewable Energy as an organization, where it started, the grand picture of vision, but how you're starting to support and close that gap of, hey, we don't have the budget, we don't have the time. Well, okay. Well, now we've got a solution for you. Talk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined Nelnet, I believe it was August of 2021. And the reason I left Yale and started working for Nelnet was really just the move, right? My wife and I lived in Guilford, Connecticut, 15-minute drive from Yale University. We decided we wanted to move to Seattle. It's a little bit of a longer commute to the university. It wasn't really in the cards, which I understood. So had to look elsewhere for a position, and I was very happy to find Nelnet Renewable Energy. When I joined NRE, as we call it colloquially, what we were trying to do was find a way to combine the knowledge and expertise and relationships that Nelnet has in the higher education space, be it through the student loan servicing platform or campus commerce, and marry that with our renewable energy skills and capabilities. So taking a step back, Nelnet Renewable Energy started in 2018 with something that's called a solar tax equity investments. I won't bore this community with explaining what a solar tax equity investment is, but essentially it's provides the ability for large companies like Nelnet to place their tax dollars into solar projects to help get them off the ground. And there's an incentive back from the federal government to do so. It's really an awesome program. It's a win-win for solar developers, customers, and businesses like Nelnet. So when I got to Nelnet Renewable Energy, again, we were kind of looking at how to combine those two pieces of the puzzle. So naturally, coming from the university space, I knew where to start. Read some climate action plans. Hundreds of universities throughout the US have these published sustainability and climate action plans where they're saying, here's where we are, here's where we need to go, and this is how we think we're going to get there. Again, a lot of universities are encountering the same issue of lack of resources, lack of time, lack of expertise to actually achieve carbon neutrality. So there's a larger goal there. But one of the pieces that kept coming up was sustainability literacy training, right? That same thing we were trying to do at Yale, whether it was for staff members or for students or for the entire university. Schools wanted to be able to measure the literacy of their community around the topic of sustainability, engage them and educate them on sustainability, and then be able to measure again how much they learn throughout the program, if you will, and how much more knowledgeable their community is about the topic of sustainability. Because it all comes down to the same thing, right? We want to create a more sustainable world. And one of the key pillars of that is making sure people understand, A, why it matters, and B, how to do it. So that's kind of when the kernel of Net Zero Academy began as a part of possibly a larger offering to help colleges reach their carbon neutrality goals. And we started having conversations with Gil, you and your team at CD2 Learning. We can go through all that, but I'm excited where we are now. It's been a long time since we had that idea, and we're in a good spot now, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. What I love most about it is that there are direct impacts and benefits from what you're doing and the causes that you're doing, not only to the earth, right? I mean, and the soil, the world we live in. There's not only just direct impacts to that, but to the organizations themselves, right? I think what you deal with, that a lot of L&D professionals deal with, is senior leaders going, fantastic. We know this is important, but how are you going to show us the metrics of the impacts? How are you going to show us the ROI on this? So how have you taken this program and built it to be able to support those sustainability professionals at a higher ed organization, be able to show that? Walk us through that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's really kind of two key pieces to the puzzle for Net Zero Academy. There's the assessment, and then there's the program. So I'll kind of start by talking about the program, and then we can revisit and talk about the assessment as well. So as we're looking at developing an educational program that touches on all the topics that relate to sustainability, you can pretty quickly become overwhelmed. Right, like Gil just mentioned, it touches every day, every aspect of our daily lives. And so when we're looking at developing kind of a primer, a basic program that someone who doesn't know anything about sustainability could take and learn something from, and someone who's deeply steeped into the world can also learn something from, it's a little bit of a tall task and a tall order.
Sure, yeah.
And especially when you look at the world of sustainability, there are some frameworks associated with sustainability that have been created, like the Sustainable Development Goals, which are created by the United Nations. ESG, environmental social governance is one that people might be familiar with as well. But there's not really a framework beyond those two. And so to a certain extent, we kind of needed to start from scratch, or at least take the knowledge that was out there and package it in a way that it was comprehensive, easy to understand, and ready to roll. So in that sense, this is sort of a first of its kind program. There are programs like it, but the comprehensive nature of it and the focus of it is quite unique. So to dive a little bit deeper into the process of creating the content, essentially what we did is we've been working with a number of universities across the US and a few in Canada to ask them, right, what would you include in a program like this? Right, you're a university, you're clearly looking to implement some sort of program to improve sustainability literacy. What do you want to see included? And so we started there, right? Develop the framework, pass it along to those pilot institutions, get that feedback, and really work on that kernel together, that outline, that framework, and then build it out from there. And to me, that gives me a lot of confidence knowing that we're creating something that universities want, are telling us that they want, and that they'll be able to implement fairly simply once we get to the point where it's fully developed and ready to go to market.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And what is the accrediting arm that has, because there's a result at every one of these, right? When you're going in, you're helping them earn certain aspects. Bring me up to speed again as far as what is the direct impact that these organizations can say, hey, look, by going through this training, not only are we doing these, but here's what we can show for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe what you're referring to is ASHE. So ASHE is the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. And they have a program called STARS. And I can never remember what it stands for, but it's something around, sustainability tracking and reporting system. Actually, that might be exactly it. So ASHE STARS is really kind of the gold standard for universities where they're trying to suss out and determine essentially how far they've gotten in making their operations more sustainable. There are different tiers, right? So there's the reporter tier, there's bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And universities on a biannual basis basically take this giant spreadsheet with all the available credit categories. It could be, do you have a sustainability action plan? Do you have a carbon neutrality goal? Do you have electric vehicles? Everything associated with being sustainable as a university. And there's also credits associated with, right, a sustainability literacy assessment, a sustainability culture assessment, staff and training, staff learning and development around sustainability, orientation. There's these credits that are directly associated with Net Zero Academy, and partially why we design it the way that it is, that can help these universities, right, fulfill the points associated with the ASHE STARS program when they do submit that report. and maybe kick them up from bronze to silver, silver to gold, and kind of further demonstrate that this university is committed to sustainability. So yeah, that's the framework that we've decided to go with. And we've spoken with the team at ASHE. Julian, thanks a lot for your time to make sure the content that we're putting together does fulfill those credits. And I'm really happy to say, at launch, once the program is up and ready to go, it should at least be able to count for 7 points on the ASHE STARS program, and possibly up to 10 points, depending on how you implement the program, which is crazy. And yeah, much thanks to my team and the team at ASHE for getting that put together.
I love that, man. I think it is so key and important. And one of the big challenges that, L&D professionals of all industries really struggle with is how do we know that our information is, well, in your case, how is it applicable? How is it accredited by these by ASHE, right? How do we make sure that this is the correct information when we're building content and it's not just opinion, right? And so getting that buy-in, working with outside parties is just so important, that you're not just siloed in your own efforts building this content, but you're working with a bigger group, subject matter experts of all kinds, getting different people's opinions, because people learn all in different ways, right? And so, but in your case, it's a very specific and defined message that needs to be shared, right? And so how do we get that defined message? But for you too, when we've been working together with our organization, is how do we deliver that message in a fun way that's not just like monotonous and it's like, gosh, but how do we deliver that through technology or content, illustrations? Like, that is so key and important, that you're working together with people that can have a shared vision together, and it's not just one siloed person, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like any startup, you want to be able to test it with your target audience. And is this actually what they want? Is this actually what they're looking for? And developing the content in-house, like you said, Gil, you kind of wonder, you're like, is this really what people want? So I completely agree. I would hate to reinvent the wheel. I would hate to develop something that I'm not really sure if schools would want to adopt it or not. And so having this pilot program, which, by the way, the way I pulled together with the pilot program was actually posting on the ASHE platform and saying, hey, we're looking for schools who want to help us review this content and be a part of this larger initiative. Like I said, we had 12 schools reach out, which was insane. I thought maybe 2 would be interested or fewer. So yeah, being able to validate the product as we're creating it, with the understanding that, this is something that universities want and are looking for, has been huge. And I know it's not replicable with every industry or every learning opportunity, but it's been really, I hope that it brings a lot of success for us in the future, is having that early validation.
Oh, absolutely. I hope so too. I mean, validation, talk about it, right? Being able to post something like that out there and so many people respond back, that's got to make sure, or got to make you feel like, hey, we're doing something here. Not only are we like hitting the nail on the head from this perspective, but we're actually going to make an impact, right? And so let's go now deliver it. And that's open game from a lead gen perspective too. Now you got 12 schools to go call and you have already relationships with, right? So heck yeah.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's fantastic. But the reality is not everyone has these initiatives. Not everyone is looking at this. Some are. If you're sitting across, or someone's listening to this that isn't necessarily focused on, they don't have carbon neutrality goals. Why do you think it, like, walk us through why you think this is impactful and that these organizations should start to try and join that movement?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gil. So if you're at an organization or a school who doesn't currently have sustainability goals, and I think this applies to carbon neutrality at large, and of course, carbon neutrality is just one piece of sustainability, is I think a lot of institutions don't realize the cost savings that can come from being more sustainable as an organization, right? There are some ways, think about it from a procurement lens, that you might want to purchase paper that is recycled instead of brand new, so there might be an added cost there. Some purchasing decisions may add some extra costs. at the expense, quote unquote, of helping to, clean up the earth and make it a better place to live. But there are a lot of ways in which implementing sustainability can save money, right? Energy bills is a huge one. If your student, faculty, worker population understands better how to save energy in their dorm and their office space, what have you, you might be surprised to see how much, individual institutions can save on their energy bills. Same with water, same with food waste, right? There's a myriad of ways by which, if you're educating and encouraging your organization or institution to behave more sustainably, you can save a lot of money, right? And money speaks. So I think that's a big piece of the puzzle, aside from all of the environmental benefits that come from operating in a more sustainable way.
Yeah, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. Money does speak. So with that, whatever program that you're trying to launch, from your perspective, it's trying to help these organizations become more efficient from their neutrality initiatives, but also there's something to be tied to what this education can do from a cost perspective, right? An expense perspective.
Right.
What we do in the corporate learning side of things, there's a direct impact on delivering education or learning opportunities for retaining employees, right? There's a direct impact when you can retain your people and keep them on board. Then when you tie that in, actually improving what they do and making them feel stronger, happier, more accomplished, and that they can go out there and do their job, there's a direct impact to the ROI and financial benefit to that too. And same goes for what you're making them feel like, I can do this, I can make this impact. And that's what education does. And that's what I love about what we do. And it's really fun to be a part of that. And I think that we've had this conversation a couple of times, Scott. It's really important for us educators. I am not. You're one of my designated smart friends, and carbon neutrality. I've got plenty of designated smart friends from an education perspective, tech perspective, all of that, right? But it's super humbling and important for us to remember that we're here to make sure that the lives of the people who go through our content, go through our platforms, the lives of those individuals are improving and they're happy people. And so there's nothing better than feeling accomplished at your job. There's nothing better than feeling accomplished at what you feel passionate about with, saving the world, right? And making an impact.
Right.
And so I really love what we're doing, right?
Yeah, well said, well said. And one final piece that I wanted to mention that I think I neglected to mention is students are asking for this, right? So there was a study done by UNESCO. I think it maybe is a couple of years old at this point, but I believe, and we can put the stat probably in the show notes so we can fact check me, but I believe the stat was that 81% of college or about to be in college students are looking to further integrate sustainability into their coursework at school. Students really want this. And there's also a Princeton review study that found that 76% of incoming freshmen make their decision on where to attend college based on a school's environmental commitment. So the younger generation, Generation Z, the students who are about to be in college really care about this and they want to see their university taking action. So students, as your customers, right, you want to make sure that you're fulfilling what they're looking for and providing a good education that's worthwhile. This can help you obviously get there and is a reason to take more action than maybe you are at this point.
It's so interesting to see the overlay of what your specific industry of education and what I see on a day-to-day basis, the overlay of a generational shift. Right. Gen Z is demanding or expecting things that has never been expected before. Right. In the corporate world, I think the LinkedIn study that just went out is that 91% of people or employees or staff professional members out there say that they'd stay at a company longer if they felt like they were being developed and invested in from a professional development standpoint. Gen Z is requiring this in their education as well. From what you're doing, they're requiring and expecting new and evolved mindsets of learning and what they're learning and investing their time in. It's really pretty interesting to see. It's cool to see that the younger generations are kind of pushing this whole shift of what is expected from a professional and just personal development standpoint.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, right? These are the voices that we need in the room. These are kind of the pushes that we're looking for to make the workplaces, the universities that we operate in, better places. So I, for one, am absolutely here for it. I think that those pushes are sometimes needed to get things up and running.
I'll tell you this, I was not focused on these things when I was their age. I was not at all. So I commend because I was on a whole nother planet. But
I'm with you. I'm
it's
with you
really
there.
fun. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Scott, as we wrap this thing up, if there's someone out there that doesn't have the opportunity to go through your training, that isn't in college and doesn't have the opportunity to go through and see their institute be a part of these things, what are 3 things that an everyday person can participate in to, reduce their footprint on the world?
That's a great question. So I think, historically, I'd say, turn off the lights, right? Turn off the water while you're brushing your teeth, right? There's kind of these established practices that most people know, right? And sometimes they're difficult to manage or incorporate into your daily life, right? I have a light on right here that I probably don't need to have on right now, but I
Yeah,
like a little bit more light on my face, right? It's using a little bit more energy, but it's kind of a personal preference. So I'll kind of go out of the box a little bit. And I
please.
think probably like one of the most important things you can do to integrate sustainability into your everyday life is just keeping an eye on what you purchase and what companies you purchase your products from, right? There are a lot of certifications like Certified B Corporation, Organic, Rainforest Alliance Certified. There's a lot of certifications out there that can help you select products that are having a better impact on the environment, right? We don't see all of the supply chain chemicals and perhaps unfair labor practices that go into making these products that are perhaps a little bit cheaper. If you want to have an impact, do an audit on the companies you purchase from and the products that you purchase. I think that's one of the single largest ways you can have an impact is put your dollar toward companies that have better practices, if you will. Yeah, so that'll be my number one.
That's perfect. I think that it kind of goes back to that whole argument that we've all heard, and I'm not going to get into the political argument of it all, but the electric car sort of argument, right? Where it's like, yeah, that's fantastic, but all the production that comes up to it, and I don't know whether it's fact or not, but I think it serves a good point, right? Is that it doesn't matter what the footprint or the impact that it's making, that you're making, doesn't start with just you getting your hands on that product. It starts from the beginning, right? And so it's something that's opened my eyes to it. And I don't do enough of the research, and so I'll again call myself out on it. But I think what better way to kind of wrap this up and really not just do the whole. By the way, the lights thing. My family, victims of that. You know who you are. And so, well, I mean, it's awesome to hear that. And something that I think that, I wasn't expecting. So thank you for that. I think that it's perfect.
Yeah, of course, of course. If you're passionate and if you're passionate about sustainability or thinking of dipping your toes into the space, there are so many resources online, right? Chat GPT, right? Maybe that's the future. Instead of Googling it, tapping into Chat GPT, right? I live in an apartment in X city. I'm looking to be more sustainable. How can I, adapt small behaviors in my life to be more sustainable? I'm sure ChatGPT could come up with something pretty awesome about that. But yeah, it's an exploration, right? You don't have to go 0 to 60. You don't have to dive in face first. Take one step at a time and see how you feel. And maybe it makes you feel a little bit better. Maybe you pull back. But it's a journey for everyone. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Scott. If anyone wants to get a hold of you, where can they reach you at?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn. So if you're looking at how to spell my name, like Gil mentioned, it's not necessarily easy. You can find it in the show notes, or I don't know if it'll be in the title of this podcast. Always find me on LinkedIn. Our website, we kind of did a soft launch of Net Zero Academy, is hellonetzero.com. So if you're looking to learn more about our program, feel free to visit that website. And yeah, reach out via LinkedIn or check out our website. I think those are probably your two best spots.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. So you have been listening to L&D Done Right, provided to you by CD2 Learning. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you, listeners, for joining us. We really appreciate your time.